2, 1. Very good evening, everybody, and welcome to what's promising to be an absolutely wonderful night in the company of Amanda Clair. Amanda, good evening.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me.
No, thank you. Thank you for taking up the invite and gifting your time like this. Looking forward to a really fascinating evening. Amanda runs the jackinthegreen.org, and that's based in Cheshire. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's my ethical online shop, and it's also raising money to plant trees as well.
Yes, I noticed that. Was it one tree for every £5 spent, and up to date is that's an unfortunate number, 2021. Hopefully that's a good omen. So 2021 trees planted so far. Absolutely wonderful. And Amanda is an artist, a teacher, a coach, a writer, and a historian for over 25 years. You don't look old enough, darling.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Yeah. I've worked in lots of different settings. I started out in mainstream education, and then I've worked in prison. I've done a lot of community work. I worked in a special school with teenagers with severe and complex social emotional difficulties and psychiatric stroke psychological needs. I've worked with refugees, all kinds of different people. So people and planet are my passions, you might say.
That definitely comes over, and I find that very interesting because when you're engaged in those fields of that giving and caring and nurturing, you know, that spiritual awareness, that spirituality, you have to be a pretty tough cookie for that not to just unfold naturally within, because you're putting it out there, you're opening up your aura, you're opening up your fields of senses and everything to work with people. And naturally, you also get fed back. You're picking up all the other elements going on. I've seen that so many times, and I just think it's wonderful when you see that. It's a natural, it's like a path to progression. A lot of people spend an awful lot of time, an awful lot of money chasing for attending various workshops and sitting in circles and doing XYZ to develop that same intuition, that intuitive side that you're doing actually through your work. So how wonderful is that?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so I've just been really lucky. I've worked with some amazing people, you know, from children to adults. From the prisoners to the kids with special needs, through to the adults that I've worked with the Workers' Education Charity. You know, we're all learning from each other all of the time. And we have two ears and one mouth, as the saying goes, and I attempt to use them in that proportion. Sometimes my mouth gets better of me and I can chat that way, especially when it's things that I'm really passionate about. But yeah, listening is a key part of working with people, definitely, for sure.
It is hugely, and it's one of the key energies going forward that we really need to foster and cultivate. You know, we've all got our own views on this time and why we're here, what's gone before, what may be to come and everything. But I certainly feel a lot of what we're going through now is like the fulcrum of our society was built on the wrong things. It was all about money, self, and the material side, going against what we understand as spiritualists, the laws of nature and the laws of spirit as well also. So yeah, when we hear from people such as yourself that have got that report, you know, there is no king, there is no pauper, there's just people.
Yeah.
And that is what it's about. How wonderful, how wonderful. Anyway, people don't want to hear me waffling because I do waffle.
Well, so we can all do that. We can all do that, Lawrence.
So without further ado, I shall hand the evening over to you. If during the course of tonight's presentation, everybody at home, you have any questions or any affirmations, you go, do you know what? I felt that. Do you know what? It's so good to hear that, because that's what I've been thinking, which is so common in these nights. Please just pop it up in the chat box and we'll come to those after Amanda's presentation.
All
so
right.
Over to you, Amanda.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for having me here, and I hope you're going to enjoy the slideshow that I've made for this evening. My name's Amanda Clair. I'm the founder of Ancient and Sacred Trees, and it's currently in the process of being registered as a social enterprise because we're now planting trees across the world, and that's one of the things that we do. I'm all about celebrating our ancient and sacred connections with trees and the earth. And in 2014, January it was, I set up a group called Ancient and Sacred Trees of Britain, and I thought that maybe I'd get a couple of hundred members. To date, we've got about 54,000 just in the UK group. And I've also set up groups for other parts of the world because people kept wanting to share their trees from elsewhere as well. So we've got groups for America, Asia, Europe, and the world as well. And I've also built a website, and you can come and join us on there too and get a good newsletter and all kinds of things. So that's a little bit of introduction there. So here we go. Right, so here's my starter for 10. What have trees ever done for us? So in the time of the pandemic, and I was just talking, me and Lawrence were just talking before we came on air about how people have really connected with nature over the past year, and how we've really come to realise just how dependent we are on the natural world and how important it is for our health and our well-being. And I have to say, for those of you that are at home looking after yourselves, you can go and hug a tree. They are virus-free, and they are always there waiting for us to make contact with them. So I've also, as well as slides, I've also got some pictures and poems to share with you. So, ordinarily, I go to the woods alone, with not a single friend, for they are all smilers and talkers, and therefore unsuitable. I don't really want to be witnessed talking to the catbirds or hugging the old black oak tree. I have my way of praying, as you no doubt have yours. Besides, when I am alone, I can become invisible. I can sit on the top of a dune, as motionless as an uprise of weeds, until the foxes run by unconcerned. I can hear the almost unhearable sound of the roses singing. If you have ever gone to the woods with me, I must love you very much. And that was How I Go to the Woods by Mary Oliver. So here I am meeting two amazing trees, and you can find these two trees in Shropshire in Attingham Park. So to the left we have an oak tree, and on the right we have a sycamore tree. Sing for the oak tree, the monarch of the wood. Sing for the oak tree that groweth green and good, that groweth broad and branches within the forest shade, that groweth now yet shall grow when we are lowly laid. And that was written by Mary Howitt, who lived from 1799 to 1888. I have to say that the sycamore tree is very much maligned by some people who think of it as a weed, but it's an amazing tree. And then in actual fact, the pollen from the sycamore is indistinguishable from the maple tree. So although people argue that it's a relative newcomer, it's perhaps a little bit disputable, that. But one thing we can say for certain is that a tree as resilient as a sycamore is going to be one of our best friends as the planet warms up, because it is so resilient, and it's a very fast grower as well, as those of you who have them in your gardens and have let seedlings sprout will know. So this is in my local woodland. It's semi-ancient woodland, and what that means is that although the trees may have been cut down at some point, actually it's been woodland for millennia. And the reason, one of the good indicators that we have for ancient woodland are bluebells, and these woods are really rich in a variety of flora and fauna, and there's an amazing selection of trees there as well. So now I've got a quote for you from Eckhart Tolle, Stillness Speaks, which I think goes really well with this slide. You can see the tree stump in the foreground and the younger trees in the background there. When you walk through a forest that has not been tamed and interfered with by man, you will see not only abundant life all around you, but you will also encounter fallen trees and decaying trunks, rotting leaves and decomposing matter at every step. Wherever you look, you will find death as well as life. Upon closer scrutiny, however, you will discover that the decomposing tree trunk and rotting leaves not only give birth to new life, but are full of life themselves. Microorganisms are at work. Molecules are rearranging themselves, so death isn't to be found anywhere. There is only the metamorphosis of life forms. What can you learn from this? Death is not the opposite of life. Life has no opposite. The opposite of death is birth. Life is eternal. And this cycle of life and death and the cosmic dance that they do together is something that really interests me. One of the reasons for that is that I've nearly died twice, once at the hands of somebody else and once during childbirth. So it's become something of an interest, you might say, so much so that I'm actually due to start a part-time MA in the archaeology of death and memory. So I'm starting that this coming week. And I'm also a member of the Last Wishes Live Your Legacy team, and it's our mission to dispel fear and the taboos around death and to promote sustainable, eco-friendly methods of saying goodbye to our loved ones when they pass. Here we have some Monterey pines. These were planted in 1915. You can find them at Plasnewid in Anglesey. And Anglesey is a really magical island. And my great-grandmother had a caravan on the beach there for many years. She must have been quite eccentric, I guess. And all the locals came from miles around to see the caravan. I think it must have been the first one on the island. And she later got a little wooden hut to live in. Not this one, but yeah. And we used to go there and see her every holiday. This is one of my favourite trees. This is an ash tree in Cheshire, and I've put a photograph of me and my offspring there so you can get some idea of the size of the tree, which is immense. As you can see, it's absolutely amazing, and I really hope that it's going to survive the ash dieback. If you'd like to visit this tree, if you go to Little Morton Hall and you walk just past the house and just past the farmyard and follow the path, this beautiful tree is just there on the footpath. Here's another beautiful tree. This one is on the drive out from Chirk Castle. It's a beautiful old sweet chestnut tree there. And this is another one of my favourite trees, and really, I think, says a lot about our relationships to trees over millennia, not just centuries, but millennia, because this tree can be found on top of a burial mound, and it's right next door to a church. You can find it in Bartomley, which is a fantastic little village with one of my favourite pubs with thatch roof on. You can see it just in the left-hand slide there. You can just see the top of the pub there. So that gives you an idea of how high up this mound is. And on the church is a Norman archway facing directly north to this ancient yew tree, which would have been there a long, long time before the church was built. And on the archway is a green man. So I think that is really wonderful. And if you want to see more of this tree, I've actually posted a video on our Facebook page called Britain's Ancient and Sacred Trees of Britain. And I've actually videoed walking from the green man up to the yew tree and doing a tour of it. So that's one of my recent posts. So we get some amazing photographs from members in all of the groups. And this is a recent photograph and really sums up how many people feel about trees. So how do you feel about trees? What do you feel when you go and meet a tree or walk in the woods? And not only is it about individual photographs, I think the groups are actually a living database that's ever changing and ever renewing, and we get photographs of the same trees over and over again, so you can see them through the seasons, and you can see how people develop relationships with them and the land where they are as well, which is really beautiful thing to see. This is a pair of really old elm trees down in Brighton and Hove, and Martin's very kindly included some information there as a post. So the groups really are, its beauty as activism. People share their pictures into the group, and then they get shared far and wide, and they're seen by thousands of people, and we're learning as well as looking at the beauty of them as well. So that's one of the things that I really love about the group. Here again is another amazing tree, another recent post, and as you can see from this, it's been seen by over 1,000 people. It's had 60 odd shares. When we share our love on social media, we are changing the landscape of social media as well. Facebook can be, and many of the other platforms can be, really tough, hard places. But, when we share things like this, we're not just contributing a beautiful picture, we're also helping with people's mental health and well-being, and that's something that comes across really strongly in the group as well. And I've had many members write to me and say how much it's helped them in their own lives, having all of these beautiful pictures, having the group, having the website with a newsletter to connect to. So it's not only, adults that like to connect with trees, children do as well. And, one of the things that I like to think that we're doing is we're protecting the past and we're planting the future. And we're not planting it for ourselves, we're planting it for our children, for our grandchildren, for our great-grandchildren, and for, thousands of generations that will come after us. We're planting these trees that will just outlive us by many centuries. This is a really famous oak. It gets photographed time and time again in the British group. So we don't just go and meet trees and photograph them and talk to them. We're a group of tree huggers. I like to think that we've made tree hugging cool and socially acceptable. And I think, that the more we connect with trees, the better it is. Trees are guardians of nature. They are an absolute foundation stone for the health and well-being of this planet. We have meetings under trees. This tree, the tri-sting tree, would have been a tree that people got married underneath. I think it's amazing as well. And this is something to think about, how we can get married in a really boring, dingy registry room, but we can't have a marriage legally recognised under a tree. Why can we not have trees recognised as legal places of worship? I think that would be something that would be really amazing to happen, and I think it would really pay honour and respect to all of the different spiritual and religious groups out there that have their meeting places out in nature. So we don't just have photographs in the British group. As I said, we've got groups for different parts of the world. This one's from America. And there's a beautiful poem written by Sissy, which I will read to you now, that she wrote about this very tree. Strong sentinel on high, beneath a mountain sky, called by name bristlecone, twisted tree all alone, with green needles so dark, life clings stoic and stark. Worn wood with thin bark edge, locked to a limestone ledge. Thousands of years flowed past, 'gainst snow and wind a mast. No sails with which to fly, you grew gnarled by and by. Drought and quakes you did face, yet you held firm your place. Despite all nature's strife, how do you cling to life? And these ancient bristlecones are thousands of years old. Some of them are at least 5,000 years old. And they really are amazing trees, as you can see from this slide. So here we have a tree from the Asia group, a temple, and surprisingly, there's been all kinds of trees that have been made into temples across the world. And I think this is really interesting, how trees are an archetypal symbol. The symbol of the tree of life can be found in all continents, right across the world. It's an absolute archetypal symbol that everyone knows. And if you look at the logo, which I designed, it was inspired by the tree of life. So here we have a really special tree, and it's known as a birthing tree. So the Aboriginal women went there to give birth to their children inside trees like this in Australia. It isn't unique to Australia. This is a practice that's taken place, I suspect, across very many parts of the world. I know that it's a practice that takes place in Africa and with Native Americans too. But what you might not know is that people also had their families inside trees in Britain. So here we have a picture of the Betty Kenny yew. This is in Shining Cliff Woods. It's the remains of an ancient yew, which was probably about 2,000 years old, thereabouts. Unfortunately, it suffered from an arson attack in the 1930s, and this is all that remains of it. But in the 1700s, there was a woman called Betty Kenny, hence the name, and her husband, and they lived inside this tree and raised 8 children. Imagine that, 8 children in one tree. They had the portraits painted by the renowned artist James Ward of the Royal Academy, and local legend has it that they made a bough of a tree into a cradle for their children. And it's thought to be the origin of the nursery rhyme Rockabye Baby. That's one theory anyway. So yeah, amazing tree. Right, okay, so we go from birth to death. And this next tree is called the Hardy tree, and it's in a cemetery in London. And what you may not know is the writer Thomas Hardy, before he became a famous writer, was actually a grave digger in his younger days. And this is a really interesting story because there was a new railway line being built to service London and its ever increasing suburbs. And so his job was the grisly task of exhuming bodies, relocating them out of the way of this railway line. And so he chose to put all of the gravestones around this tree as a way of honouring the dead. Now, what's also very interesting is, why is our past important? Well, our past is really important because unless we know where we're going from, how can we know where we're going to? And this is a very interesting story because it ties in very well with current HS2 ecocide that is happening. And what many of you may not know is that while HS2 was rerouted to save a golf course, unfortunately, the churches and burial grounds in the way of it have not been saved and are currently being dug up. So people are having their loved ones' bodies dug up and removed for an technologically out-of-date railway line, which it's not just the railway line, it's all of the vast amount of road networks that are being built alongside it as well. And that's not something that people are really thinking about. It's not just the railway line, it's all of the roads alongside this railway line as well. So yes, that's why I thought it'd be interesting to include this slide as well. So we can see that, we have stories repeating themselves. So we need to look back and think, what are the lessons that we need to be learning? How can we change our mindsets for the sake of ourselves and this planet? So I think this is a really beautiful sentiment here. And I have another poem for you while you have a look at the slide. I think chances are that if you ever got to speak to a leaf and asked it to look back on its life and recall its most exhilarating moments, it would say that there was no finer moment than letting go of all it knew and had experienced in life. to free itself from its security and comfort zone and surrender wholly to the wind. As it sung to it of its coming leap of faith, to take that plunge in the delicate and dreamy rays of the afternoon autumn sun, and not know where it may land, nor care, because it was lost in the magic of its flying. Love is the bridge between you and everything roomy, and this is a bridge into one of my favourite local woods, and it's a woods where I grew up. I grew up in the countryside, a mile from the nearest public road, so I spent a lot of time alone wandering through the meadows and trees where I lived. Sometimes, if you move carefully through the forest, breathing like the ones in the old stories, you may come to a place whose only task is to trouble you with tiny but frightening requests, conceived out of nowhere, but in this place, beginning to lead everywhere. Requests to stop what you are doing right now, and to stop what you are becoming while you do it. Questions that can make or unmake a life. Questions that have patiently waited for you. Questions that have no right to go away. Those words were by David White. So here we have a really beautiful slide to follow on from that poem by professional photographer Phil Darby, who is one of our members who regularly posts amazing photographs in the group. When Heaven and Earth Collide, I think it's a beautiful picture. Who do you see when you meet a tree? We all have our own thoughts and ideas. We all have our own personal ways of connecting with trees. And that's something that I really encouraged in the group. It's about our ancient and sacred connections with trees. We've spent 99.9% of our evolution in forests. That's why trees are such an integral part of our health and well-being. They are crucial to our mental well-being as well as our physical well-being. And I think this is one of the reasons why in today's digital world where so many people can't get out to nature, I think this is one of the services that the group provides, is a way for people to connect online with nature, even when they're in an office or they're stuck in their room at home. I actually have a disability. I've got fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, and there's days when I am confined to my room, and so I've journeyed with that and come up with my own ways of connecting with nature. And it's something that I'm really passionate about, is enabling people to connect with nature in lots and lots of different ways. And it's also part of a new project that I've set up on the website, which is free resources for schools and colleges. And it's going to be a growing resource of videos, meditations, visualizations, nature connection activities, lesson plans that will all be free for schools and colleges to download. And they can also have free talks from me as well. So if you are a teacher or you know a school that might be interested, share the link. So who do you see when you look at a tree? I love these two. So if you have a look at these trees, we've got, first of all, we've got the Old Man of Wilton Lodge Park in Scotland, and we've got Merlin of the Beech Tree. Can you see Merlin there? I can see his eyes, nose, mouth, and his beard. These are not photoshopped, by the way. These are real, original photographs. So we get sometimes some quite big arguments in the group, because some people go, oh, it's just pareidolia and it means nothing. And other people get quite upset because they say, well, you're putting human qualities onto trees and, you know, they're just trees, or, you know, the trees are beings in themselves. And my thoughts around this are, does it really matter how we connect with trees? I think the important thing that we have to do right now is connect with nature, and I'm quite happy for people to do that in whatever way they can. So if people want to see a tree as their best friend, fantastic, marvelous, brilliant. This is what we need because we only protect what we love. So here is another really good example of people's own personal sacred connections with trees. We have many people with disabilities in the group. We have lots of neurodiverse people. We have people with lots of disabilities. We have lots of housebound people. We have people with terminal illnesses. And as I've said before, the group means a great deal to them. And so me and my fantastic moderator team spend countless hours every week patrolling the group, attempting to keep the trolls at bay. And thankfully, the members are really good at reporting rude comments, and we have zero tolerance for trolls, so we get rid of them straight away. But you can see how the personal connection means so much to people. This has got over 2,500 likes. It's had well over 100 shares, and it's because of the stories. You know, our life is made up of stories. Like if we were perfect beings, there would be no stories, because we'd be enlightened Buddhas just wandering through life, making no impact on the planet. But the fact is that we are imperfect humans, and our stories are the best way that we have of journeying through life. And really the question is how can we take the broken pieces of ourselves and weave them together into a magic carpet that will take us to somewhere really beautiful. And I think that this photograph is really beautiful because this is a relationship with a mother and her son, and the son's relationship to nature. And really, this is such a wonderful teaching for all of us from this 11-year-old boy about seeing what is so sacred, what is so special in nature. And you don't have to be religious, you don't have to be spiritual to get that. This, you know, you might believe in nothing, but to see the joy in a moment, to see the beauty of nature and to connect with that, that's the important thing. And that's what the group's about, is celebrating the common ground that we all stand upon. Beauty as activism. I've said this many times. We only protect what we love. So we really need people to share what they love in whatever means they have possible, so that others can fall in love with the world as well. Because it's only when we fall in love with something that we really connect with it, and that we are really prepared to put ourselves out on a limb and protect it with, you know, with all that we have. And it's by connecting with nature that we realise that we're not separate to nature, we are a part of it, and we share this world with other living beings. There are other beings on this planet apart from us. And yes, it is the tragedy of life that other beings must die in order that we might love and live. But how do we do that? Do we want to make the choice to support factory farming, which clears vast thousands of acres of Brazilian rainforest? Or do we want to make the choice to have less meat, but have really good quality, organically farmed from our local farmer just down the road from where we live? So we all have the power to make a conscious choice every single day about what we choose to do with our lives. So this photograph really, as the group grew bigger, it started to dawn on me the power of the group for spreading a positive message about the planet and to get people to connect with nature. And I'd been thinking for a long time about how, you know, what I could do to make the group even more effective in that. And really what pushed me as a final push, and this is when I came up with the idea of the tree planting, was this photograph. And I don't know how anyone could look at a picture like this and not feel totally moved by a being trying to protect their home. It's heartbreaking. It's utterly heartbreaking. And remember, you know, this is not about it's not just about places in South America or in Africa or, wherever else. This same thing is happening right now with HS2. This same thing is going to be happening with a scheme called Nature's Ark, which is going to be taking place across 3 counties, which I think Buckinghamshire's one. I can't remember what the other 2 are. Look up an article by George Monbiot of The Guardian. If you type his name in and put Nature's Ark in, you will see an absolutely damning article about him, about the extent of the Nature's Ark scheme. So, like I say, yes, people need houses, but we need eco houses that are sensitively built. We do not need these get-rich-quick, shoddily built housing schemes that we're getting at the moment. And there are ways and means of living, and this is not it. This is a sweet shop in India, and I think that this really gives us a clue into how we need to be changing our mindset. How do we share the planet with other living beings? How can we live a little bit lighter on the earth? And I think that comes from changing our mindset first. So again, it's about falling in love with something. If you fall in love with someone, I'm sure many of you have, it's about that relationship between the two of you. And when you're really in love with someone, you want to help them, you want to love the things that they love. So, what do we love? Who do we love? Why do we love? And I think this picture is really inspiring, how that they've literally just built around the tree to save it. Life flows through these veins. So again, a really beautiful picture there. The true meaning of life is to plant trees under whose shade you do not expect to sit. That was by Nelson Henderson. And again, our connection with nature, it's not just about seeing the biggest trees, the most ancient trees. We can find joy in the smallest of leaves. And if you're stuck at home in lockdown, you can find the joy in a single house plant. If you are ill and confined to your bed, you can see the pattern of the rain on the glass on the window. So we have all different ways of connecting with nature around us. So this photograph, I put this photograph in because I thought that it really summed up very well our choices. We are the walkers between the worlds, and which one do we want to cultivate? So at the moment, we seem to be living in some kind of death cult. We have no sense of consequences. We're always just living for the latest gadget. We celebrate youth rather than old age. But with that comes a price, because obviously in thinking about immediate gratification, we never think about what's happening in the future. So my question here about what do we want to cultivate is which way do we want to turn? Where do we want to place our attention? And when we've placed our attention, what do we want to do next and how? So that's something that I do think that we are all walkers between the worlds. Hope in a time of extinction. So I do believe that there's hope. Like I say, we all have choices, and these choices can be very hard choices sometimes. I'm not saying that they're easy, and we've all made choices in our lives, good and bad. But we always have the power to change things. And I think that we must never, ever give up thinking that we can change things. And even the smallest thing can make a big difference. And the example I'm going to give you for that is that I'm just an ordinary person and I love trees. And I set up a tree group thinking I was going to get a couple of hundred members. And now it's got thousands of members. And now we're planting trees. And we're protecting trees across the world. And I never would have imagined that that would have happened from such a small action, but it's true. You know, sometimes the universe just says it's you, and in this case it happened to be me, but we all have that power. We can all do things to make a difference in our world. So we're not just in the river of life, we are of the river of life. We are a part of nature, and nature is a part of us. The care of the earth is our most ancient and most worthy, and after all, our most pleasing responsibility. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is now. So here's a shameless plug. £5 will plant you 10 trees in the tropics. All of these designs are done by me. I've designed all these different e-cards. There's you can send somebody a tree hug. You can send them a birthday card, you can send them a blessing, you can send them a certificate, you can send them a memorial. And that would be a really wonderful thing to do, to leave a living legacy, would be to make a pledge in your will to gift some trees or gift help in some way to nature. I have a poem here, another one to read. This is a prayer that's over 1,000 years old, and it comes from Portugal. I am the heat of your hearth on the cold winter nights, the friendly shade screening you from the summer sun, and my fruits are refreshing draughts, quenching your thirst as you journey on. I am the beam that holds your house, the board of your table, the bed on which you lie, and the timber that builds your boat. I am the handle of your hoe, the door of your homestead, the wood of your cradle, and the shell of your coffin. I am the bread of kindness and the flower of beauty. Ye who pass by, listen to my prayer. Harm me not. Remember who you are. So I would like to thank all of the members in my groups for continuing to share the love and share their photographs and thoughts and poems and knowledge so generously. Without them, it would be nothing. And together we are a green and growing community. And if you would like to join us, everyone is welcome. If you want to join us on the website, we have a good newsletter and discounts, and you can write articles for us, and there's lots more things there, and free resources for schools and colleges I've already mentioned. And yeah, so that's free. But other than that, yes, come and plant trees with us. Thank you very much to all of you for listening.
Thank you. I loved that, and by the comments as well, I know a lot of other people did. As I said earlier before we went on air, I love passion, and your passion came out in many forms. I thought I was going to have to jump in there with that picture of the orangutans. I thought, but no, you recovered very well. But yeah, I remember seeing that on the news and sitting there with a teary eye. But I love your attitude about getting out there and doing something, because we keep seeing this every day, don't we? You know, I'm not a rebel, I'm not an activist, but we watch it every day, and then what do? We turn over and watch something else.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, isn't it? You know, we don't all have to climb trees, we don't have to line in the roads in front of tanks, but we can press a button and click like on a picture and share it. You know, we can give to charity, we can take care of each other, and we can plant in our gardens and do all of those things. Yeah. And it's easy to forget that sometimes as well, I think. So it's always good to keep reminding ourselves of the things that we can do.
Yes, definitely. Always remain in that positive vibration. Lots of lovely comments coming in there. I will go back to one that came up quite early from Angus. Angus is asking here, he gave Reiki to an old small Christmas tree found in a pot. After a few minutes, he was physically repelled back to the far wall of his room by the force of energy emanating from it. Is there any reason why this occurred?
That's a really interesting one. It can be, obviously, you found that Christmas tree, you don't know what happened to it. Obviously, it was contained in a pot. You know, regardless of what feelings or thoughts we have about trees, you know, that's not a natural environment for the small Christmas tree. And sometimes when we're approaching another being, it's like approaching another human. So I wouldn't necessarily just come up to you and just give you a hug straight off, because we don't know each other, and you might think, oh my god, nutty woman, get away. So it's the same. It's the same with other beings as well, and it might just be that it was just such a big shock for it that its first impulse was to go, rah, get off, you know, who are you? So maybe next time, perhaps maybe just go in a little bit more gently and just maybe ask permission first, or just try and send out just a beam of unconditional love to it first would be my suggestion. And some trees are friendlier than others. I've found. I remember once hawthorns apparently have a reputation for being a bit prickly, literally. But I remember going for a walk in Manchester when I lived in Manchester in my 20s, so this is a long time ago, in a park, and it was a lovely romantic evening with my boyfriend. We were walking in the moonlight, and I reached up and touched this hawthorn. I just got this amazing feeling of just warmth from this tree just surged through my body. I was absolutely amazed, because I hadn't gone there with the intention of connecting with trees. But that one certainly reached out to me that night for sure. So yeah, you know, we can connect with trees on so many different levels, definitely.
Now, that is really interesting. We had a talk a few weeks back on shamanic practices, and one of the topics raised in there was when the North American Indians would take an animal for food and for the hide, they would actually like ask its permission beforehand, you know. And I just thought, how wonderful is that? And what you've just said is in that same vein, but that's step on. You know, if you go up to a tree, excuse me, may I approach you? Because they are living beings, and we forget that.
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting. One of my other obsessions, you might say, is with bears, and I've been investigating our own Indigenous history with regard to this animal. And it's taken me on a trip across the world, researching all these ancient tribes. It's what I'm going to do my thesis on for my MA, actually, about, you know, what is the wisdom from our native inheritance that we can learn from for today. And all of these bear ceremonies, although they took the bear's life, it was all very the same thing. It was about honouring the spirit of the bear. It was about making gifts. And it was really a way of connecting with life, with creation, and just remembering our place within it, you know, with life, with death, and that balance and that dance that there is between the two.
Indeed, yes. And again, as I said, everyone has their own thoughts and constructs about this time. My personal point of view is, you know, we've walked like titans across the face of the world, totally immune to everything around us, forging our own way forward regardless, and unattached to anything around us. And yet here we are, brought to our knees by the simplest and smallest thing in God's creation. Just on a philosophical level.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's it. It's these things that come are teachings for us. You know, the toughest experiences we have in life are very often our greatest teachers. You know, where did this virus come from? You know, it came out of wildlife markets. You know, that's what they've been. That's at least one of the stories that's being said about the virus. So, you know, again, it's about relationship, isn't it? It's about cultivating right relationship with with other beings other than ourselves.
Very true, very true. And a response there from Angus, thanking you for answering his questions. And you said, good point. He's repotted it and it's in the garden. May plant it now.
So, fantastic. Yeah. Just be aware, if you decide to actually pot it directly into the ground in your garden, they grow absolutely massive. So if you've got a really big garden, you might want to put it down the end of the garden. Don't put it near your house, because you can find that it's towering over your house in next to no time.
Or over any drainage you've got in there, Angus. And I speak from experience here. A little comment here from lovely Tony Goswell, who'll be with us tomorrow, chairing our service. And she's just saying, when I was growing up, there was a tree that had been hit by lightning, so it was hollow inside, but continued to grow. I swear I felt a heartbeat.
Well, that's really amazing, actually, because in the spring when the sap rises, if you get a stethoscope, you can actually hear the tree. You can actually hear the movements of the tree. So yeah, heartbeats. Yeah, I believe you. I think you probably did hear the heartbeat. And I think the other thing is about trees is that many trees, as they get older, actually hollow out. So the oak tree is a really good example. And actually, we shouldn't be worried when we see a really old tree like that hollowing out, because it actually helps them to flex and bend with the wind as well. When they start to hollow out, it's actually part of the natural process. Lightning trees, wow. Here's an interesting fact for you. When lightning hits the ground, if there's sand, it turns the sand into glass, and you actually get an upside down tree where the energy of the lightning has gone into the ground. Isn't that amazing?
And yes, yeah, good point, because the tree symbol, through all different religions, creeds, ethoses, practices, the tree symbol, as above, so below, is such a it's a strong symbol. There's a resonance. We pick up on some ancestral vibration that we may or may not be aware of at the time, but there is that deep resonance there because it is that perfect natural formation.
Yeah, it's like I mentioned in the talk about the tree of life. It is. There's something really deep and primordial that really connects on a really deep subconscious level. And I think part of our task as humans is to really connect with with that deep place inside, because that really helps us to connect to the outside as well.
Very true. And again, it does help us to remember that we are part of the earth and the earth is part of us. We are not superior, despite how we may think or feel. We are not in any position to make it anything natural subservient to our wish and will. We must work with. For when we work against, as we are seeing now with the repercussions through the earth, at the end of the day, we lose.
Yeah, and I wrote an article on the blog, on the website, the Ancient Sacred Trees website, about science and the sacred and how the two can meet up. And we have all of this technology, we have all of this knowledge, but knowledge is not the same as experience, and it's not the same thing as wisdom. So it's about making that transition, and that's why we need our personal connections, our personal emotions to connect, as well as just our brains, because it's what draws us to it. How do we connect?
Very true. I think when we look at science, we probably don't get an understanding of many things. We just get an explanation, but we don't understand it on its full vibratory field. And this is what's been missing a lot. All the advancements we've made in the medical side, in the socio-economic side, in the technology side, it's all there, but we're not connecting. We're not understanding. Who would have thought with the internet, the power that would wield, and who would have thought with things, the social media sides, about people connecting. The initial thought was, oh great, how great is that? But now actually it's midway between a gift and a curse on the social media, you know, and it is because we don't actually connect. But nature, we connect because we are from nature.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, nature is the best teacher that we could ever have, because nature, you know, as that quote by Eckhart Tolle said about, you know, the opposite of death is birth, and we have to know the two and how the two connect. And one of the ways that we connect is nature, and also remembering. I think one of the main problems that we have in the modern world, and I'm not going to ascribe this fault to any particular country, but the big problem we have in this modern world is that we have forgotten our ancestors. We've forgotten where we come from. We have forgotten a lot of our ancient wisdom, but it is still there. We can find it in our ancient stories, and we don't have to go to another continent to find these things. These things are actually here in the place where we are sitting right now, wherever that is, where you know, everybody watching this, wherever you are right now, there is wisdom to be found where you are. And one way that we can connect, this is a good suggestion for you, is to go out and find a piece of land that draws you, and it can be just a small piece of land, you know, maybe 1 square mile, and just walk it and walk it and walk it and really get to know it on a really deep, intimate level, and find a sit spot and go and sit there and spend time in the landscape. And that will really connect you in a really physical and feeling way. And then on the other side of it as well, is the other thing you can do is research your local legends, your local folk tales, any old wives' tales, any myths, anything like that. And you will find that those two sides will really weave together, and you will get something really, really special out of it. Yeah. So that would be some of my tips for connecting.
Actually, that is something that unconsciously I do. I find certain areas invigorating. When I'm there, I just find it. The Isle of Wight is one place, down the West Country is another, and the Lake District. And because I have too much time on my hands, I was looking up the geology of these places, and the one thing they all have in common is they're all very much granite based. And I just found that fascinating, that when I'm in those areas, I really resonate. It's just, it's like a coming home vibration. Equally, I have other areas that if you gave me £1 million house and it was in one of those areas, I would say no thank you, because equally I'm just sort of like, whoa, not drawn to that in the slightest.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? You know, different people get connected to different places, and there are some places in the landscape that don't want us there. You know, they have really decided that they don't want humans there and they want us to stay out. And then there'll be other places that are really open and welcoming to us. You know, we can each find the place that draws us. Very often, sacred sites are good places to look for as well when you're connecting with a place. And you can often find that you will start to get messages through before you've even researched a place. You'll start to get, you know, if you open up enough and keep an open mind, that you'll start to get intuitions and feelings and thoughts, and maybe images will pop into your mind or sensations. And then when you go and research the place, you'll find that there's some amazing similarities with, you know, what's there and the history of the place. It's really quite amazing, you know, how that we have so many deep skills within us that we really don't use. And I think, isn't it that we only use 10% of our brain, something like that? I think the statistic is. So it's the rest of our brain and all of our body that's there to help us connect and to learn as well.
Very true. Very true. Absolutely beautiful evening. Just to quickly round off this evening, when I was getting ready for this evening, I just kept having this word, the Titans coming to mind. So I thought, okay, let's go and have a look. And there is a poem called The Titans by Friedrich Hölderlin. And there was this one line in there, which I'm going to put up at the bottom now. And I thought, oh, how interesting is that? How interesting is that? I don't know if you can see that where you are.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
I love that. You
Yeah.
know, I
Yeah.
absolutely, when I saw that, I thought, thank you. That's why you led me to that. It ties in beautifully with tonight. It ties in beautifully with a lot of understandings as well out there. Amanda, what an absolute pleasure having you on our channel tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I've got one small request to make, apart from the shameless plug for my website, but I'd just like to offer a very quick blessing to you all, if I may, before I
speak. Of course.
All right, okay. So, blessings and blessings and blessings. Blessings on the standing nation, the ones who join heaven and sky, the ones whose roots reach deep into the ground, whose branches hold up the sun and the stars and the moon, who bring us shelter for broken hearts, who bring shelter for the lovers, who bring shelter for the lonely ones. Blessings on the evergreen ones and the ones that lose their leaves and the ones bough laden with fruit. Blessings and blessings and blessings on the ones with hard shells that crack open to reveal a green and growing wisdom that grows into the heart of the earth and grows into the heart of humans. Blessings and blessings and blessings on all who have come to sit here today around this holy fire of stories and poems and pictures. Blessings on each and every one of you. May love and wisdom flower with your every footstep. Thank you.
Absolutely lovely. Amanda, brilliant night. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. As Amanda has said, please, I think I have the link here to the jackandthegreen.org, which I will put.
It's ancientandsacredtrees.org is the website, is the tree website.
Righty-ho. I'll just put in the link in there to your site, the Jack in the Green.
Yeah.
Or one of your sites, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Ancient and Sacred
trees.org. That's the one you can join if you want a newsletter that has pictures in it and poetry, and I share quotes from members about why they love trees. It's a little bit of good news to come through the airways to you.
Brilliant.
And lots of articles written by me and other people as well on the site and all sorts of things.
Absolutely wonderful. So both those links are now in the chat column there to the jackandthegreen.org and the ancientandsacredtrees.org. Yeah. Just quickly going forward with the church here. Tomorrow, live online and live within the church, we have our Sunday Divine service. And tomorrow we have Wendy Walton, who is paying her first visit to our church. And it's being chaired by the lovely Tony Goswell, who thoroughly enjoyed this evening. So thank you, Tony. On Monday night at 7 o'clock, we have our online meditation. Next Wednesday, 3 o'clock, live within the church and live online to view only. We have our Wednesday service with Phyllis Rumney. And I think that's it, actually, for the week. We do have a night of paid for mediumship lined up with Billy Cook for a week tonight. However, these were done as an experiment and the uptake has been not very good at the moment. So probably won't be on Saturday night unless I get another amazing guest. Keep your eyes and ears open. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us. Amanda, thank you so much for sharing that passion. Sheer joy.
Yeah. You're really welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you everybody for having the patience to listen to my endless ramblings about trees and all kinds of things. I really appreciate it, and I'm really happy to be of service anytime. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. I wish you all a wonderful evening, everybody. From the sound of it here, there's either horses on the roof or it's pouring down with rain, but either way, we need it. So enjoy yourselves, look after yourselves, stay safe, and we will see you all